Hello and welcome to Rising Up with Lois Moshero. This is the channel where I share inspiration and encouragement to just help us navigate the twists and turns of life, beat the odds, rise above all limitation and become the best versions of ourselves. In my last video, I talked about overcoming bad experiences and I discussed a few things that one can do in order to get to the other side of a difficult season. In today's video, I will discuss a topic I've titled After the Bad Experience. So I want us to ask ourselves the question, what happens to people after they've gone through a bad experience? And I know there's so many things that can happen to an individual after they've gone through a bad experience. But on this video, I'm going to discuss just two of them. Two things that can happen to people after a bad experience. Now, we do not react to experiences the same way. So it may happen to some people, it may not happen to others. But these are the major things that can happen to people after a bad experience. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is bitterness. And bitterness comes as a result of somebody holding on to feelings of anger and disappointment for a long time. They're just those times when you totally feel, I was treated unfairly. I don't deserve to go through that, through what I went through. And so you tend to hold on to that feeling of anger, disappointment into the person who mistreated you, and you are totally unable to let go of that feeling, to let go of that person. The other thing that happens when someone is bitter is that they're unable to forgive. So bitterness and unforgiveness go hand in hand. And someone said, unforgiveness is a punishment you give to yourself for the mistake of another person, because sometimes people will hurt us and they will even forget what they did, but you are still there feeling angered, feeling disappointed by that person, and so it becomes like you are punishing yourself for the mistake of that person. And when we do not deliberately decide to forgive people that have taken us through bad experiences, it can really affect us adversely. And so it takes a deliberate decision to just say, this person did this, I know that I didn't deserve it, but then I am going to let go and I'm going to forgive this person, not for them. Actually, forgiveness is not really for the person that wronged you. Forgiveness is for yourself, so that it sets you free. It sets you free from that feeling of anger. It sets you free from that feeling of disappointment, and you're free to just move on with your life without thinking about that person or thinking about that bad experience. The other thing I'm going to talk about that happens or can happen to a person after a bad experience is change of one's worldview. So a bad experience can make somebody change the way they look at life, the way they look at people, the way they do things, and it can either be positively or negatively. Let me give an example of somebody who has gone through divorce. Now, there are some people who totally decide, I'm not cut out for marriage. Even if I get into another relationship, it will not work. And that becomes their worldview. Like, marriage is not for me and I can't do it and I'm over and done. Another person will put themselves together and decide this is a chance to love and to be loved again. So these are two different people who have gone through a similar experience, but the experience have changed them. One has been changed negatively, another one positively. Because, when you punish yourself because of an experience that you went through, then you're not doing yourself a favor. If a bad experience is going to change you, let it change you positively. One time I happened to be in a situation where I needed a counselor, and being a believer, I totally felt I don't want to deal with a born-again counselor. I know the Bible, I know what the Lord says about my life, and so I want to hear someone who doesn't believe in what I believe in, so that I see whether there's something I can do differently. And so it is like the situation that I was going through was starting to change me negatively. Okay, thank God I did not go for a counselor who is not born again. I still got a believer. But you see, it was possible for my worldview to be changed. Like, I don't want to do things the way I've been doing them. And I just want to look for another way of doing it. It may not necessarily be right. So that's the other thing that a bad experience can do to people. It can change their worldview. It can, I mean, sometimes people feel like believers will feel they are disappointed with God. They do not want to follow the path they've been following because they feel like, I've been living right, I've been doing everything I ought to do, and I just don't know what else to do. But if a bad experience is to change you, then it is good for you for that experience to change you positively, where you turn your mistakes and turn the bad things that have happened into stepping stones. Just yesterday, I was talking to somebody who is going through a situation, and I was telling them, if you're still going to make decisions and judge yourself based on the bad thing that has happened, then it means you're still a slave of your past. You're still holding on to things that actually made you decide this is not the place for me. So despite what you've gone through, despite that bad experience, just put yourself together. Look at yourself in the mirror. Remind yourself that you're created after God's own image. He has a plan for you, and His will for you is to become what He created you to be. So get rid of that bitterness. Refuse to become a slave of your past, and rise to become what God created you to be.